Want to ask Mike Holmgren, a city boy question. He's a city guy and he's got a lot of city connections and a family that's near and dear to my heart, the Fahey's. There was a bar on Taravel called Fahey's. It is now Carl's Beacon, and I know the guys that run it. But back in the day, Mike Holmgren invited a bunch of his buddies from Fahey's to go out to Green Bay. And apparently there's a story connected to this, and I'd love to ask Mike about it.
All right, well, you can ask him right now as he's on the line, courtesy of the Boxer Girls and Guest line. Of course, Mike Holmgren, former assistant coach with the 49ers, offensive coordinator, won a couple Super Bowls in, and, of course, the Packers head coach, where he became the enemy. But they had some great teams. Won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. Also did a hell of a job in Seattle, and they got close to knocking on the door. And, look, man, now that Mike Holmgren's on the line, I'll never admit it anytime else. And, Mike, I don't want you to get fined, even though you're retired. I got jobs in that Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what those referees are doing to Detroit Michigan that day. Gosh, Mike. I'm surprised you kept your composure that day.
No, you know what? I've said to many people I'm over it until it's brought up again. So thank you.
So you know what? Let's just bring up the bar on Taravel then, Mike. Let's do that. Let's continue to keep it moving.
Yeah, Mike, Fahey's bar on Taravel. I heard a story from a friend that they asked me to ask you about the time you invited some of the hooligans from Fahey's to come out to Green Bay. What happened?
Well, those are my guys, and growing up in the city, and so I knew a lot of the guys, and so I invited them back to the game in Green Bay, and I think they had a blast, as the guys in Fahey's would, and so it was really nice to see them, and we had a party at Gil Haskell's house that evening. Oh, wow. And if you know that name, Gil coached for me, and he went to St. Ignatius, and longtime NFL coach, good friend.
Yeah, the Gil Haskell Trophy.
Yeah, I have pictures of them all asleep on the couch at about 10 o'clock after the game. So, but look at San Francisco. Still, I have my home in Santa Cruz, and I always take the kids up, my grandkids up. We go up to the city a couple times during the summer and take them for a tour. And then last year, I drove them by Lincoln High School, and I hear from the back seat, Grandpa, we saw this last year. So I do the same stuff all over again.
You had to remind me that you went to Lincoln. I went to Washington, Coach. So.
Oh boy, yeah, Washington. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. You had that experience, but the city is. There's nothing like the city.
No, you're so right. You're so right. And by the way, Coach, we didn't lose a bell game during my time there. Although Lincoln, I think Lincoln has won like 11 straight or something like that. But anyway, they're on a roll. Shasky was asking me earlier. The contrast and just the cities, Green Bay and San Francisco. You would know more than anybody being in Green Bay. And I'm looking forward to the schedule being released for next season because I want to make my first trip to Green Bay. I love the history of the game, love the history of the NFL. And just when you see Lambeau Field and the history behind it, can you explain the difference in Green Bay and how that stadium's just in the middle of the neighborhood and how that fan base just, I think they're America's team, not the Dallas Cowboys, Midwest, Vince Lombardi, Mike Holmgren, all the great quarterbacks up there. Can you explain what makes Green Bay so unique?
Well, guys, when I went there, and I remember flying in to my interview there, and it was cold, obviously, and there was some snow on the ground, and I'm thinking to myself, is this the right thing to do? Because it's a very unique place. You could never do that again in today's NFL, where the city actually owns the football team. And I mean, I have certificates of ownership. I have for all my kids and grandkids.
Wow.
I bought shares in that too. But you get in there, and I have my home. I lived a few blocks from the stadium, and I could jog to work and things like that. But the people, you go there if you're visiting. This is what impressed me, among other things. If you're a visiting team rooter, like say you guys came in and had San Francisco jerseys on and sat in the stadium, they'd tease you a little bit, but they love football and they respect the opponent, and it was just a different place that way. But people ask me, did the pressure of the NFL, does it get to you and all that kind of stuff? And I said the games didn't. In Green Bay, what was hard was I felt responsible almost for the mood of the entire state because it's the Packers. It's important to everybody in Wisconsin. And when we lose, which fortunately didn't happen too much when I was there, but when we lose Monday, it was really everyone was in the tank. I mean, it was just so you had to kind of bring them out of it again. But I love those folks, and it was a great time for my family and me.
You know, when I look at these two teams, I'm looking at the two quarterbacks. Obviously, you've talked to us at length just about how when you're a head coach, when you're an offensive coordinator, you're a teacher, and you're trying to teach these guys. And both these guys came into the league very differently, Jordan Love and Brock Purdy. Just your thoughts on Brock Purdy, though, to start with. I mean, he feels like a guy you would love to coach.
Oh, no. I mean, I watch him play, and you know, everyone knows his story of being the last kid drafted and all that kind of stuff, so there was a reason that happened. You know, I used to analyze quarterbacks as my job, and, you know, there's certain things you look for, and so there's a reason he was picked later. But, you know, it was the perfect fit, I think, with Kyle and the people around him. But then now he doesn't get enough credit because he's a very accurate passer. He's a tough kid mentally, and he's just going to get better. I mean, I always said that a quarterback, if he can stay with the same coach and the same coordinator for a couple of years, he hits his stride in year 3. Mm-hmm. You know, it takes that time to mature and to get ready to play. Well, Kyle, and the connection there between coach and quarterback and the rest of the guys on the team, it's happened sooner for them. But, you know, I love the young man, and, you know, his record speaks for itself. They don't lose games.
Yep. No, you're so right. Mike Holmgren, Super Bowl winning head coach, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. Of course, we love him. He's a city guy, former coach of the Packers, Seahawks, and, of course, was with the 49ers with Bill Walsh and all those great teams in the 80s. He's here on the Morning Roast on the Boxer and Girls and Guest Line. Now, look at the other side here. Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. And midway through the year, there's a lot of rumblings coming out of Green Bay, a lot of rumblings nationally like, boy, is Jordan Love the guy? Is LaFleur any good? Is he a good coach without Aaron Rodgers? I think they've proved that they have something cooking up there in Green Bay. Discuss the job LaFleur has done to get Jordan Love up to speed, especially within the season. They're rolling right now.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have said it any better. And listen, I think I was one of the guys that also thought that about midseason. I'm going, you know, because to be honest, I haven't seen Jordan Love play a lot, but you know, you're wondering. You follow Aaron Rodgers, you follow Favre, that tradition in Green Bay for so many years. Now, can they do it again? You know, and it appears as though they did do the right thing. This young man, particularly last week, my goodness, against a good Dallas team that it just blew my mind what happened in that game. And so, yeah, give credit to LaFleur, give credit to their Packers and just how they do things. The challenge, I think, of course, they went into Dallas. I think the 49ers can feel good that they don't have to go into Green Bay and play.
Right.
I think that was always a tough thing to do, but. No, I think it's the connection between LaFleur and the quarterback appears to be working. The throws he made, some of the throws he made, he's really athletic. Yep. He's really athletic, and he's just what you want that way in a quarterback.
Yeah, throwing off the back foot, some of those throws was like, wow, this guy's got it all here. But, you know, when we talk about patience, Coach, I don't know if it was always like this in the NFL, but it seems like in today's day and age, like Nick Sirianni, the Eagles just lost, and he's led them to 3 straight playoff appearances in his first 3 seasons as head coach. And all you hear is like, boy, he may be on a hot seat. The Eagles are going to have to decide. Is there too much pressure on head coaches to win the Super Bowl this time around? Was it like that? Because it took you 6 years to win one in Green Bay, but you guys were knocking on the door. But I never heard rumblings about you being on a hot seat, you being fired. You guys obviously ended up winning a Super Bowl. Shanahan's in the 7th season. They haven't won a Super Bowl yet, but they've been knocking on the door. But it's to say, today's sporting society, are we just too impatient now with quarterbacks and head coaches?
You know what, guys, it's funny. Kathy and I get up every morning, we have coffee, a little devotional, and then just go about our day. And the other morning we were talking about, and I said, you know what, I know I'm old, but it seems different now for the very reasons you just said. I'm worried about all these coaches and some very good coaches, and they're on the hot seat and this and that. It just seems like it is different. It seems different to me. Owners have less patience. Now, the thing in Green Bay, you know, you don't have an owner, so it's a little different. And in San Francisco, the ownership there is really solid. You know, Jed and those guys, they understand what they have there, and John Lynch, and they understand those guys. But a lot of places don't, I think. You know, and then a lot of places have a very successful, obviously a very wealthy owner who has made his money in another business, comes in, buys the team. And then I'm not sure it's a different business. It is a different business. It's very much a people business, and sometimes they don't have the patience. I think it's different now. I agree with you.
You know, I'm looking at this 49er team, and they've been a juggernaut all year, and it feels like they're as healthy as they've been, and they've got home field advantage, and everything's set up. And Bonte started off the shows like, man, if they find a way to lose this game this weekend, it would be one of the biggest disappointments in like 40 years. And we've been talking a lot about this game over the last couple years. 88, the playoffs against the Vikings. You're a part of that 1987 season, January 88. You're a part of that team. Wade Wilson and Anthony Carter going absolutely berserk against the 49ers. Looking back on that game, was there something that the Niners didn't do or prepare themselves for? Was it just an outlier game? Is that the playoffs? Like, I'm just worried about the Niners in this matchup. They were an 11-point favorite in that game. They're almost a 10-point favorite in this game. And I'm worried about us maybe not being ready for this Green Bay team.
You know what? That game, I do remember that game. And I remember, you know, we had the first round bye. Minnesota was the wild card. And Minnesota was coming in. So we were feeling pretty good. But I remember Coach Walsh for 2 weeks. We started practicing 2 weeks, and we banged it for 2 weeks. We really did. And I thought one of the reasons in that game is that we were ready to play the game on Wednesday, but we still had to practice 2 more days, and that's the way he approached that game. So, I mean, that's one thing. The other thing is Minnesota. I remember early in the game, Anthony Carter was running a slant, and Ronnie Lott usually lights that up. Usually just lights that guy up. And he caught a pass, and Ronnie just kind of tackled him. And I'm going, that's different. You know, that's different. But that was that game, and it was a close ball game. But they, you know, and then right after that, Coach Walsh was very upset with everybody, and he wanted the consideration of trading Joe. Yeah. I'm going, I'm the quarterback coach. I'm going, what? Huh? We can't, please, come on, we can't do that. And so we went to the combine, talked to a bunch of coaches about trading. They didn't believe it either. We didn't. Thank goodness. Yeah. We didn't. But, you know, that was the reaction. Very, very, you're right. They should win this game on Sunday. When are they playing? Saturday?
Yeah.
Sunday?
Mm-hmm. Saturday. Saturday night.
Saturday.
Yeah, they should win the football game because of all the reasons. They are really good.
Yeah.
They are really good. And so it would be a disappointment.
You know, the only thing around here that even comes close is, you know, like Alex and Kaepernick, but the Montana and Young thing and just the dynamic of that, of one guy trying to ascend who was a number 1 overall pick, Montana who had already won 2 Super Bowls. You were there. You had a front row seat to the entire dynamic. The coach, I'm sure you guys are part of the staff are debating this in the room. The Niners just went through this with Jimmy G, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy. Walk me through these conversations when you're talking with Bill Walsh. Like, what did it look like with Shanahan and John Lynch and even Jed York, the owner, and part of the staff? What do these conversations look like to us fans when you guys are breaking down who is advocating for who in the room as to who the starting quarterback would be? Because I find it hard to believe all these conversations of Tom Brady and this and they stuck with Brock, and they hit a grand slam here. And I don't think enough credit is given to the dialogue behind the scenes.
No, I know, and if people really knew the real dialogue, there was one evening when we were not playing well, and it was my last. We wound up. That was 1980 when we went to the Super Bowl. We wound up going to the Super Bowl. We had just lost to the Raiders in a stinker, 9-3 or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
So Bill, you remember that game? And then, so Bill, Monday night we had dinner, tables, wine glasses, all this stuff in Mr. DeBartolo's office. It was all set up, and I go, what? Because normally we're paper plates, and you're in your coaching shorts getting ready for the next week. We go in there, and Bill went around the room to each guy, says, what's wrong with the team? And they went, you know, and guys would say, well, the left guard, I remember Bob McKittrick, the left guard pulled, and then someone with the receiver dropped this ball. And I'm thinking, no, because Steve and Joe were going back and forth during the games. Bill was playing them that way. And I finally got to me, and I said, Coach, I think you're the problem. And the room stopped. And the coaches looked at me, and I said, they listen to me, but they hear you. So I think pick one, and then we'll go. And he slammed down on the table, and he walked out of the room. And I'm going, and all the coaches, they start throwing rolls at me. They're yelling at me. They're swearing at me. What are you doing? Are you out of your mind? And so then he comes back and he goes, Mike's right.
Yep. We're
going to go with Joe.
Yep.
But he goes, Mike, you know what happens if this doesn't work? I'm going, gee whiz, I got little kids.
Right.
I go, what's going to happen here? But we wound up we beat Washington in a big game.
Yep, Monday Night Football, yeah.
Yeah. And then the next morning, Coach Walsh gave me the game ball. And that's the one football thing I have in my cabin in Santa Cruz on the mantle. Yeah. You know, so it's just sometimes you have to be honest and hope it works out for you. You know.
So I want to know, because Don Majkowski, a lot of people forget the Magic Man. And he was up and coming in Green Bay. And I remember he came to Candlestick Park with the Green Bay Packers, and they beat the Niners like 21-17. I'm not sure if you were in Green Bay yet. I'm not. Maybe you're still the OC with the 49ers. My memory's a little foggy there. But Don Majkowski, the Magic Man, he was supposed to be the guy. When Brett Favre took it kind of, Brock Purdy, the way he took the reins last season, does it kind of remind you of the way Brett Favre took the reins out there in Green Bay when you're coaching?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Now, when I got in there, I was still in San Francisco. When I got in there, Don had hurt his shoulder the year before. Yep. And so when I got in there, and he was the quarterback, he was the starting quarterback. But then Ron Wolf said, you know, I got a chance to get Brett Favre. What do you think? And I said, I'm not sure, because I ran his workout in college. And he's I don't know if he can fit into the offense I want to run, you know, and be disciplined enough. You come from Montana and you go to Favre. I mean, it's different. So I go, but then Ron does the thing. We trade number one to get Brett, and then so he's on the roster. Don, we almost beat Minnesota in the first game, which would have been a huge upset. Don comes and throws a bunch of interceptions early in the second game against Tampa. I remember this stuff. So I started Favre in the second half. Majkowski was upset.
Wow.
Third game, I said, okay, Don, you're coming back in. You're starting. And he gets hurt. Don got hurt in the third game against Cincinnati. Favre went in. We win it in the last 30 seconds. And the rest is history. And then Brett played for the next 16 years.
Wow.
You know, so, but that was what happened there. Don got hurt. But eventually, you spend a number one draft pick on a quarterback. You're telling your fans, you're telling everybody that's your guy. At one point, it's going to happen. And it happened rather quickly for us in Green Bay.
You know, Coach, you've been around the game for so long. Your brain and your eyes have seen so many things. So I want to ask you about two players on the Niners. And obviously Reggie White, you know, Roger Craig were guys that you were with for a long time, and you saw them up close and personal. I'm not comparing the guys currently to those two legends, but when I watch Christian McCaffrey, I go, man, there's not a hole in this guy's game. Just like he can do everything, and we underrate every aspect of it. And the other guy is Nick Bosa. You know, to be one of the legends like a Reggie White, you got to do it in the playoffs. Break down those two players from a coach's perspective.
Well, I'll start with Christian. I was out there. I visited down there when Dwight Clark had a Dwight Clark fundraiser recently, and Brent Jones asked me to come in. So I got to see the old guys, and then Christian showed up. And so I talked to him because I knew his dad, and I agree. When I watch him play, I have no idea why Carolina traded him. That's the first thing. And he can do it all. Yeah. He can catch in the way he does. He's a leader. So he's as good a back as I've seen in a long, long time that can do everything. As far as Bosa, same thing. If I am playing against a Nick Bosa, then you have to take a couple of guys to block him because he can disrupt you by himself. And so, yeah, he's a little different size than Reggie was, but he's a great pass rusher. He's relentless. They're great football players. That's what I mean. The 49ers, yep. Deebo Samuel. You go through the roster. Kittle. I mean, they got guys that are really arguably the best at their position in the league, and they have more than a couple.
Wow. Coach, we could talk all day long. You brought up Reggie White. During the holidays, Shasky, I just watched Reggie White's 30 for 30 because I don't think people remember how good he was. And look, Mike, Coach Holmgren, we're in our early 40s, man. So we grew up watching the late 80s and the 90s, and Reggie White seemed like he always dominated with that club move. But just courting him to Green Bay, I thought was fascinating. And I had no idea the finalist for Reggie White was the Cleveland Browns.
It's insane.
The San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. And I didn't realize how sophisticated Reggie White was with his religious beliefs. Yes. But you guys let him do what he did. And what a dominant player, man. So, no, we're not going to compare both to Reggie White.
I wanted to know because Reggie was the differentiator in a lot of games.
You know, I got to see that. I've heard a lot about the 33rd. I haven't seen it yet. But he made me laugh. He was really – I didn't think we could get him there. Yeah. You know, he was going on the goodwill tour of getting fur coats and all that stuff. And I made a comment to Ron. I said, what are we going to give him, a block of cheese?
Yeah, I remember that. They mentioned that, Coach.
Get him here?
They mentioned that in the 30 for 30. Michael's like, well, I guess we'll just go to a bar and just have a beer or something. This is all we have to offer in Wisconsin.
No, but he was a special man, and I missed him, and I still miss him.
Yeah, we all do.
Coach, we have a soft spot in our heart for you. San Francisco boy and somebody who's just a great football mind. We always appreciate spending time with you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Coach. Coach Holmgren here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game, Lincoln High School. Coach at Oak Grove. Coached at Sacred Heart for a second. Was a teacher up there at Sacred Heart Cathedral. Longtime offensive coordinator with the 49ers. I heard that today.